Hi, I'm Alton Brown, and today on Good Eats, we're cooking beets. Look, I know beets can be a little bit scary, okay? Especially if you were raised on canned ones the way I was. But trust me.
But trust me on this, folks, our prices have never been this low and never will be again. Why, take this sporty 1998 coupe. It comes fully loaded. It comes with everything you can...
Excuse me, just a second. Come on, you've at least got to hear me out on this. Beets are, just a second. Beets are sweet, they're earthy, they're versatile, and they are as good for you as...
Aguántame, Reynaldo.
Hi, Despule. Look, the thing about
usted?
¿Dónde está la estación de tren?
Yo no puedo trabajar así.
¿Quién sea usted? Pronto será despedido.
¿Cuánto es el sombrero?
¡Imbécil!
Look, you got me feeling like Sam I Am here, okay? Just give beets a chance, would you? I won't make you eat them in a box or with a fox. I won't make you eat any borscht or any dyed eggs or anything. Just nice, straightforward, good eats. Now, come on, let's go back to my channel, okay? If one is to befriend the beet, you must find a beet that's fit to eat, and you will not find that in here. Luckily, you can find it in here. Still suspicious? Well, consider this. Man and beet go way back. How far? Well, I'd say about...
At least 5,000 years.
You don't say.
Absolutely. And in fact, the 4 modern varieties of beet all come from the same original species. Beta maritima, the sea beet. It still grows wild along the coast of Europe and North Africa. And originally, people only ate it for the large leafy greens because at that point, the root was really small.
You know, Deb, size isn't everything.
Who told you that?
All right, what about the modern versions?
Well, there's the Roman yellow beet, which is now called mangold wurzel, and it's used for animal
Easy for you to say.
And then there's Swiss chard.
That's a beet?
Yes.
Don't that beat all?
And then, of course, there's the sugar beet.
Mm-hmm.
Do you know who invented the process of taking sugar out of beets?
Beats me.
The French.
Figures.
It was during the Napoleonic Wars, and the British had blockaded them, and they couldn't get any cane sugar, and Napoleon...
Fascinating. But what's number 4?
Oh, Beta vulgaris, the garden beet.
Ah, okay.
And, of course, this comes in a lot of wonderful varieties, too.
Indeed it does, and you know what? This is my field of expertise, so why don't you just...
Beat it?
Besides the standard red beets, there are golden beets, white beets, even candy cane beets, which are variegated white and red on the inside. Now, baby versions of each are available, but since they're harvested about 45 days after planting, they're only available early on in the season. Me, I really just like plain old red beets. I don't think you can beat them for sweetness or texture. Now, I always go for bunch beets, okay? You want the greens intact. Healthy greens mean fresh beets. Of course, these taste good too, but more on that later. Now, I never go for beets that are larger than, say, a tennis ball. Bigger than that, and, well, I think they get too fibrous and they take forever to cook. Now, if you have to buy bulk beets or just loose beets, always look for specimens that are nice and smooth, no cracks or wrinkles. Yum. How long will fresh beets keep fresh? Well, it depends on how old they are and how you store them. If you buy them early in the season, or when they still got nice tight greens on them, you've got some time to spare. How much? Well, if you park them in the refrigerator, you may only have 3 to 4 weeks to spare. But if you keep them in, say, your root cellar where it's nice and cool and dry, heck, you might get 20 weeks out of them. If you leave them in the ground where they grew, you get even more time. Of course, I don't have a root cellar, and I can't exactly leave them in the ground in which they grew, can I? But I can simulate those conditions. Check this out. Pretty smart, huh? It's play sand. From the hardware store? Don't you remember what Deb said?
Beta maritima, the sea beet. It still grows wild along the coast of Europe and North Africa.
Of course I cleaned it. I'm so paranoid I even put it in a pan and ran it through the self-cleaning cycle of the oven just in case there were any sand germs. Anyway, down in the sand, it's always dark, whether the door is open or not. And the sand wicks away excess moisture while maintaining a proper humidity. And I don't have to tell you, it's always nice and cold down in the sand, whether you leave the door open a lot or not. Of course, you do have to do a little prep. Make sure that you cut the greens off of the beets, or else they'll just sap the sap out of the beet. But you want to leave at least 1.5 inches, okay? That way you won't get nasty red dye all over your pristine white sand. Oh, this method is also very, very good for carrots. Oh, sure. Laugh now, but just wait till I get that Nobel Beet Prize. Regardless of their final culinary destination, I never peeled beets before cooking them. For one thing, any chink in the armor will open up a spigot of red liquid, which can stain. In fact, I think it stains worse when it's raw than cooked. Got to figure that out. Another reason is that they peel a lot easier after a quick cooking. So, cut the green back, with about 1 inch left, save those, and then give them a scrub with a pad, right, like this little scrubby guy, underwater. Like that, just to get the dirt out. Now, unlike our grandmothers who were taught to cook beets with boiling water, I stay away from wet methods because basically I think it pulls out flavor and nutrients without giving anything back. The one exception is steaming. If a recipe calls for peeled raw beets, I just drop them into the steamer for a couple of minutes so that I can do this. Hey. Easy off. So what do you do with beets in this condition? Well, you could run them through your V-slicer or your mandolin and then just marinate them for about 4 hours in your favorite oil and vinegar dressing, crumble on some Stilton cheese, maybe add some toasted nuts, and voila, salad. Or perhaps I should say good show, because this is really very, very British. And I mean that in a good way. When it comes to straightforward beet cookery, I'd rather roast than boil. Here's why. Dry heat intensifies flavor by driving off excess moisture while concentrating and breaking down sugars into other chemicals which just happen to taste really, really good. To help the heat move in quicker, though, I like to put some oil on the beets. I've got 6 to 8 medium beets in a metal roasting pan. I want to make sure they've got enough room to roast. So put a little bit of oil on them and rub it in. Now, the oil is important because it's going to basically create a conduit for the heat. Remember, oil can get a lot hotter than water can, and that'll cook them faster. But here's the groovy thing. It also creates a waterproof barrier. I mean, remember, water and oil don't exactly get along with each other. So by putting oil on the outside, as it cooks, the water inside is going to be a lot less likely to depart the beet. That means we end up with a beet that's done, but also moister. Set your oven for 400 degrees and check on these in about half an hour. When it comes to checking for doneness, I always go for a paring knife. Some cooks like using a skewer, but I can never really get a feel for them. Now, there is resistance, but not too much. The general rule is if it feels like a perfect baked potato, you overcooked it. Now, if you're looking for something a little more, well, just something more, hold on. Believe it or not, they taste as good as they smell. So what do you do with roast beets? Well, you could just peel them, sprinkle on a little butter, some parsley, some salt, and eat them. Or you could have some real fun and pickle them.
La amnesia pasará, y entonces recordaré tu nombre, y te amaré más.
Ay, Reinaldo.
Hey, disculpe,
¿Por qué
otra vez,
volvió, hombre loco?
Mis tacos es muy frito. Just give me a second. Look, I'm not talking about those little red wedges of death they served you back in school, okay? Now, come on. Continue, Ome.
¿Listo?
Sí.
La amnesia pasará.
If we're going to make pickles, of course, we must have a pickle. And our pickle begins with a cup of water, a cup of tarragon vinegar. You can make your own tarragon vinegar, of course, but that's another show. Half a cup of sugar and a teaspoon and a half of kosher salt. This we will bring to a boil in the microwave oven. And it should take about 3 minutes on high. Oh, and of course, anytime I bring a liquid to a boil in a microwave oven, I put a skewer in the vessel. That gives bubbles a place to collect so that they don't collect all over my hand when I open the door. It's been known to happen. Like I said, 3 minutes. Meanwhile, peel and cut your beets, roasted of course, into nice thin little discs. Look at that lovely color. And here you find another really good reason for leaving on the stem. It makes a really groovy handle. And move those to a bowl, metal or glass please, no plastics. And last but not least, we will need 1 red onion, peeled and Frenched. What's wrong, you sissy? The Frenching procedure, which creates perfect tiny little wedges, wasn't actually named after the French people. It was named after the beloved Sebastian Cabot character from Family Affair. All right, so it's named after the French, but it really is easy. Here's how. Cut your peeled onion in half, thusly. Take a little piece off of the bloom end and a little piece out of the root end so that the layers will separate. Now lay your knife down flat on the board, bring up your onion, and using your knuckles to guide, cut radially up to the middle of the onion. Thusly, roll the onion over and repeat. Now it takes a little bit of practice, but it is worth it because in the end, you create perfect little wedges of onions. Nice. Okay, next. And fill 2 1-quart jars almost to the top with alternating layers of beet and Frenched onion. There. Then retrieve your pickle juice. Remove skewer and slowly fill to the top. I like to go all the way up on one, let it percolate a little bit, and come over and go to the other. Odds are good you'll have to do a little bit of refilling as the air rises to the surface. There. Place on the lids and allow these to cool to room temperature for about 2 hours before moving them into the refrigerator. Technically, they'll be pickles in about 12 hours, but the flavor will really hit stride in about a week. So, patience will be rewarded. But gotta remember, these are refrigerator pickles, not preserved or putting up pickles, okay? So you've got to keep them in the refrigerator, and they're only going to last here about a month. Yep, I got enough for a month. What do you mean, what can you do with them? Well, for one thing, you can just eat them. You can cut them up and put them in salads. You can make relishes for meat. Heck, I take the juice that's left over, mix it up with homemade mayonnaise, and dip seared tuna into it. Very, very, very tasty. Now go wash those beady hands. The red in beets comes from a pigment called beta-cyanin. It's heat stable and highly soluble in water, which is why it's been used as a dye for fabrics and as a food coloring. It also washes out pretty easily with soap. Now personally, I don't mind a few dozen hand washings a day, but if you do, then by all means wear gloves. Now, if you're a loyal Good Eats viewer, and I've no doubt that you are, you probably noticed that I do don latex gloves from time to time. Now, this is not because I have some, deep-held, Quincy fantasies from childhood. It's because they stop cross-contamination, they help you keep hold of things, and they also help you work with foods that you might otherwise be allergic to. I, for one, would never touch oysters without these. Latex is made from the sap of rubber trees and is referred to as a colloidal suspension of hydrocarbon isoprene unit polymers, or I don't know, something like that. Yeah. I guess that whole ant rubber tree plant thing isn't really true. Latex gloves come plain and powdered with cornstarch. The powdered models are easier to put on, but since the powder can become airborne, it can be a problem for people who suffer from a latex-related skin or respiratory discomfort. Latex allergies are rare, but the chances of you developing one increase the more contact with latex you have, which explains why those clowns who bend up the balloon animals have such a tough time with health insurance. Okay, plastic gloves are used a lot in food service organizations, but I don't really like them because I think they're a little slippery and the gloves themselves get in the way. The other option is vinyl. Now, vinyl are nice and fit. They're very tactile, so they're easy to work with, but they're a little on the pricey side, certainly more expensive than good old latex, which is what I prefer. As far as finding these, well, just about any good hardware or drugstore will carry them. But if you can't find them, just go onto the internet to your favorite search engine and type in food service gloves. Since they contain so much sugar, beets are perfect for pan glazing, a procedure that's darned close to candying and good for other small sugary things like carrots and pearl onions. The software begins with 20 baby beets, scrubbed with the aforementioned kitchen scrubby. Now, these beets are easy to find early in the season, a little harder in the end of the year, but they can be gotten through wintertime. By the way, since I don't like to put sand down my kitchen sink, I usually rinse root vegetables and spinach in a separate vessel and then just water the plants with the leftovers. They don't mind the dirt. Now, these go into a saute pan, meaning straight sides and a lid, along with 2 cups of apricot juice. You could use orange, but it gets a little bitter when you cook it. Now turn this up to medium heat, cover, and cook for 10 minutes. Now, add 3 tablespoons of white balsamic vinegar and 2 tablespoons of your favorite honey. There we go. Just stir that in briefly. Reattach the cover and turn the heat down just a hair under medium. Cook for another 10 minutes. Heat management is the key to this dish. If your heat is too high, the liquid will evaporate before the beets are cooked through. If there's not enough heat, the beets will cook through, but there'll be way too much juice in the pan to qualify as a glaze. Now, if you encounter the first problem, add a 1/4 cup of water and slap on the lid and let it cook over low heat for about 3 minutes. Then check for doneness, boost the heat, finish the glaze. If you've got too much juice, you're going to have to evacuate the beets out with a slotted spoon. Just put them in a bowl and then boost the heat, finish the glaze, and then reincorporate the beets. Finishing touches? Well, I don't know. Some parsley would be nice. Since you're still here, I have to assume that we've won you over to the way of the beet. Despite the crimes perpetrated on this humble root by lunchroom ladies everywhere, the beet remains nutritious, delicious, and gosh darn it, they're pretty. Speaking of nutrition, there's been a recent resurgence in the whole raw food movement whose proponents hold that raw vegetables contain more nutrients than cooked. Well, this is undeniably true because heat does either destroy or deactivate a lot of different nutrients. But here's the thing. Unless you can manage to chew your way through every single cell wall in a vegetable, like a beet, you're not going to get to the nutrients because there's nothing in the body's toolbox to break these walls down. Now, cooking does remove some of these nutrients, right? But it also breaks down the cell wall so that your digestive juices can remove them, making the rest of these nutrients available to you, the eater. Oh, Thank you. As for the beet greens, melt a tablespoon of butter over medium-high heat and add 2 cloves of garlic, minced. Pile in 12 ounces of sliced mushrooms and cook until soft and brown. Then add a pound of beet greens, stemmed and cleaned. Meanwhile, mix together 4 egg yolks with half a cup of Parmesan cheese, 1 cup of ricotta cheese, half a teaspoon of salt, and a 1/4 teaspoon of black pepper. Add this cheese mixture to the vegetation, stir well, and then pack into a well-lubricated baking dish. Sprinkle on some crumbled crackers or even breakfast cereal, and bake at 375 degrees for 45 minutes. Now, see you next time on...
I was supposed to say it.
Yeah, you are.